Hello, everyone. Hope everybody's having a blessed day today. It's a beautiful day out here in the mountains in Colombia. Absolutely gorgeous day. So, today I'm going to talk about specifically our breath is linked to our emotional and mental states. And so, you've probably noticed this before. If ever you're panicking, or you're super sad, crying, or you're angry, you realize that you have an irregular breath pattern. Whether it's hyperventilating or something of that nature. And so the key thing to realize is how we breathe affects our nervous system and the state which we're in, whether we're in fight or flight or in rest and digest mode. The parasympathetic is preparing to relax. The sympathetic is that fight or flight. And so just through hyperventilating alone, we can reach that sympathetic state. But we'll feel that anxiety, we'll feel those depressions, we'll feel those ADHD, we'll feel all those states of consciousness that are altered. And it's all accessed through the breath. And so every time that we breathe, our heart has to pump the oxygen that we're taking in to our muscles. And so the faster that we breathe, the faster our heart has to pump that oxygen to all of our muscles. And so this is something that's specifically tied to longevity. Is the faster the heartbeat of a person, the shorter their lifespan is. It's because the heart has to work more just to pump. And so the key behind a lot of these practices is to lower our breath rate per minute. And so our body becomes more effective at absorbing the oxygen as well as taking in the oxygen. Because if we're taking in short little breaths, what I call like quarter or half breaths, we're only taking in a quarter or half of the oxygen that we would take if we're taking in a full deep breath. And so what is a full deep breath? It's where we're using our diaphragm and we breathe in fully using our diaphragm. So our stomach will expand first because our diaphragm has to relax in order so that our lungs can inflate, because our lungs are stationary. They don't move. It's our diaphragm that moves our lungs. And so our diaphragm has to move down into our abdomen, and every time that it does that, it causes the stomach to expand. So if you're breathing properly, you'll notice that your stomach is expanding first when you breathe in, and then subsequently your chest. And so you should feel that breath, and starting at your stomach and then going all the way up to your chest, and that's a full deep breath in. And then vice versa for the exhale. And so, a lot of people that I see that are in these states of anxiety, states of panic, states of depression, especially states of ADHD, they're over-breathing. And so when you over-breathe, like I was saying before, we tap into these other states of consciousness, which aren't really favorable or enjoyable. Because if we're breathing slowly, it's going to be a much more enjoyable experience. We'll feel much more calm. And so the goal of a lot of these different breathing techniques that I teach is to lessen our breathing. And so specifically, if we can get down to 5-6 breaths per minute. So inhale, exhale included, taking 1 minute. Because a lot of the people that have these types of conditions that I just mentioned, are breathing 20, 30, 40 times per minute. These super shallow breaths. And so the key is to be able to learn how to extend our breath and to actually fully breathe correctly. There's a study that was done that 85% of the people don't actually breathe correctly. And so it's something, it's innate to us as humans. It's part of our nature to breathe, of course. But over time, through different habits, through different postures, through our muscles locking up, through traumas, through stresses, through accidents, it prevents the range of motion of our muscles that allow us to breathe. Because a lot of people will breathe in through the chest, or they'll breathe using their scalenes. And so a lot of these improper breathing patterns cause these symptoms of distress. Because that's the way that I used to breathe before. I didn't used to breathe using my diaphragm. Over time, just through the stress and all the different medications, I locked in this pattern of breathing that wasn't favorable for me. And so when I locked in that pattern, it caused me to be in that state of ADHD, that state of anxiety. And so it's something that we can come out. So any state can be learned or unlearned, because we have the ability to be at a state of calmness, a state of sadness, a state of joy. Any of these states can be achievable. But the magnitude in which we are able to lock these states in require discipline. It requires us following these different breathing patterns over a period of time. And the more that we follow these different breathing patterns on a daily basis for a period of time, we can lock in these new states. We can lock in these new breathing patterns. And so before, when I was breathing in these states, I was stuck in this fight or flight. And it was directly tied to my body, to the traumas, like I was saying before. My body was very rigid. Because I used to do a lot of bodybuilding and gym and not a lot of mobility. And that led me into the world that I'm in now. And now I'm super flexible. I do a bunch of yoga, a bunch of breathing, and it's now fully conscious. As before, I'm just following in these different patterns. And, I spoke to this about someone, to a client the other day, is if we have a rigid mind, our body's going to be rigid. And so our beliefs are directly reflected in our body. And so before, when I'd follow this specific pattern for working out, and I'd do the same thing, and I'd follow the routine, I would get locked in this routine with the rigid beliefs that I have. And then that caused my body to be rigid through my beliefs. And so the key of all this is to look at what beliefs that we're holding that are locking us in to these different states. And so we'll find is if we've always done something a specific way, and like I've always done it this way, this has been, the set way for me. Those types of beliefs that we never change or examine allow us into these different states where our body becomes locked, and we become locked in these states of fight or flight. Because a lot of people that are stuck in their mind are specifically stuck in the state, and pretty much the majority of every single person that I treat usually breathes incorrectly. So the key behind all of this is everybody that I see and pretty much everybody that I treat overbreathes. And so the majority of the people that have these overthinking problems, it's directly correlated with the breath. And so once you learn to lessen the amount of breaths per minute that you're taking, it really lowers this anxiety, this depression, and ADHD that you feel. And so one of the key ways to lessen the breaths per minute is by doing breathwork practices. And so this is key to overcoming these states. And you notice once you start to control your breath in a rhythmic manner, and it comes out flowingly through the exhale, and then it comes in flowingly through the inhale, you notice you just start to flow with everything in life, because you're not necessarily trying to control things. It's just coming back to our natural state, because this is our natural state. Yet we have all these patterns that take us out of this natural state. And so we have to come back to our natural state, this natural rhythm of breathing. And so we have to open up the body, open up these muscles that we're using to breathe, learning how to breathe correctly, extending our breath times, the amount that we can inhale and the amount that we can exhale, because then our body will start to become more efficient at just operating and living. Because if the brain is focused on trying to breathe and it's not in a natural manner, the brain, the nervous system will utilize a lot of energy. And so that's why a lot of these people don't feel very energized that I see, that aren't breathing properly. Because if we're not oxygenating our body properly, we can't create the energy. Our cells can't go through the ATP process in a good manner. And so the ability for our body to carry oxygen is diminished. And when that happens, all of our functions are diminished as well. And so we're operating in a level where we're not at our optimum selves, optimal level. And the key is that we have the power to be in this optimal state. And we can do this directly through the breath. And so I just released a breathwork in the classroom, the Find the Love Within breathwork. I'm going to come out in the next couple of days with a new breathwork, probably going to film it tomorrow. It's one directly on sleeping, and so that one's a really good one, calming the nervous system, preparing yourself for sleep. But the one that I have in there now, if you do that for 21 days, you'll automatically start to feel more calm, because you're working with your natural breathing to adjust it back to its original state. And so once we bring something back to its original state, it can function in a way better manner.